you're working on a startup,
Yeah,
seeing where it
yeah,
goes.
yeah.
How are you taking that experience and applying it to now? Like, does that help you find more contacts? Like, do you have a book
Mm.
like a network already built up that you can tap back into?
Mm,
Like,
mm, mm.
tell me a little bit about that. How are you building, yeah, your capital?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think because the startup that the VC that I was at, they're
Mm-hmm.
in China and they're hardware focused.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm kind of doing now is based in the US and
Mm.
it's more software based.
The
So, like,
complete opposite.
yeah. So,
Literally.
there's not a lot of overlap in the two kind of
Sure.
like networks.
Yeah.
But I think like many of the things that I just observed the founders doing and like
Uh-huh.
even just how the VCs think, like I can
Uh-huh.
apply some of those same ideas and principles when I interact with VCs here in the US
Wow.
and when I'm thinking about doing my startup.
Uh-huh.
And I think like there's something about startups that a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know how to build a business or like I don't know how to start something. It just seems like this big monolithic thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just kind of like figuring it out as I go. There's certain steps. I just like validate certain hypotheses, test things out on a small
Yeah.
scale, and just kind of go from there.
That is so
Yeah.
cool. No, I want to touch back on that. Just
Mm.
the act of starting, like
Mm.
startups not being this huge like lofty, out of sight, out of mind, beyond reach idea.
Yeah,
Because like
yeah.
I remember when we were first talking, I was like sitting down.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, you're doing a startup? Wow, that's
Mm,
amazing! Like, who's
mm.
involved?" And you were like, "Just one other partner."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, okay, great. What are you guys doing?" Like, and you were like, "Oh, we just like code and like make stuff and like this is not to like undermine your
no,
efforts
yeah,
at
no,
all."
that's absolutely what we do.
Yeah, but I'm like okay, I'm just like listening. I was like, okay, I'm like seeing a gap. I'm like, it just sounds like it's a hobby. like- Like what makes this a startup? And I was
Yeah.
like asking you, trying to understand. But like basically, you guys like just having the intention to make this into a fully fledged business and being on the same page. But like just being in like the current circumstance and working with what you got now,
yeah,
like that in and of itself makes it a startup. And that was just so like mind-boggling to me because like from an outsider's perspective, I look at startup world as like, wow, it's so amazing. Like people are just talking to other people, like throwing money at each other and like doing such like amazing things. Like I need money and like someone just throws money at my face. That's just like what I think like startup world is. But like you're telling me here, like, oh, you guys are both just working out of your homes, like working out of your bedrooms, like making stuff, like
Yeah.
ping ponging back and forth.
yeah,
It's just like a hobby, but
Yeah,
with like
yeah.
a deeper and more serious intention.
yeah.
Wow.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, and
That's
just kind of like
crazy.
putting more time into it, and hopefully you enjoy it like like a good hobby.
That
Yeah.
is that's amazing. That's encouraging too, because like for me,
Mm.
like I think I told you this, but like there was a period of my life and still now, like where I want to be
Mm.
kind of like I realized I have a gift in like entertaining people. So like I was like, where would this best like manifest? Like I was like, well, maybe I could be a pastor, like a funny pastor. I was like, no, they don't make money. But like I was really considering like either a music producer or like some kind of like experience creator, you know, and then like a YouTuber or like a Twitch streamer, because like I can do something I enjoy and also make content out of it and like bless others and make money from like AdSense and sponsorships and stuff like that. That's like my ideal spot. But like, you know, I never thought about how like there's like something that coincides with how startups start from like the way you say it and how YouTube channels start. It starts out of like a passion and a desire from yourself and it slowly builds from there. And like from my understanding and from like a lot of other people's understanding, it feels like for a startup to be legit, the infrastructure needs to be there first. And like that's kind of how we've been seeing this the incubator that we're trying to start on this campus. The person that's like mentoring us, his name's Christopher, the one that's usually on this channel.
right.
He's been like saying this thing like we're the incubator, like we are incubating, and I was like, I never understood what he meant, because I was like, aren't we trying to like create a platform for people to come? And we had this like breakthrough conversation yesterday where he was like, no, like we're just doing it. Like if you're not doing it and you're talking about wanting to make an incubator but not doing it yourselves, you just have like you don't have anything. I was like, and like my mind was just like, I was like, you're right. So that's kind of like what you're talking about. It's so encouraging to think about how a startup or like any initiative just starts with you and your personal desires.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be this lofty thing, and like it doesn't have to be something so centered on others and like what the world thinks of it. Of course, if it serves others, like great. That's like of course why you do anything, like that it may be a blessing to others and also unto you, right? But it's encouraging to think that it's like within reach.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And I think if we kind of like, even when we look at a ton of businesses, I mean, I think in today's age of like VC and like the startup ecosystem, a lot of people do maybe take like a very strategic approach. Is like, where can I like exploit an opportunity that everyone is overlooking? But I think some of the more successful ones have definitely been. It's just kind of like, I'm really interested in this thing. I think there's a couple people that would really appreciate and value what I'm doing. And people just create for that audience of a few. And then you realize, oh, there's actually a greater need, and I can kind of change things around to meet more people's needs. And then it's just over time, you just kind of get better at what you're doing. You're addressing more people, and it just grows over time. And I think like that actually is like one of the more successful stories that I think I hear a lot, and from a lot of people.
No, that's really encouraging. I feel like a lot of people, including myself, when I say a lot of people, I'm really just talking about myself. It's like, like I know now it's like a compound interest. Like you start with this, like, you know, like kind of like idea / passion, and then you, like, in response, people respond to you, and like that builds momentum, and you realize you go deeper. Like you said, like there's a deeper need, and like there's different ways to like execute on it, and different iterations that you could do to like whatever your craft is or whatever you're trying to build. Like to like really refine it. But like for the longest time, like I feel like I had to have known the whole vision before getting there. But I realize now, like, it's like trying to navigate like a hiking trail from beginning to end without taking your first step. Like, even though the map might say this, like, you don't know till you get there.
Yeah.
So that's really encouraging personally.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the viewers too.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I think is this kind of sounds a little nerdy, but even from like academic literature or like psychology, human beings have a tendency to see already built things, or like or like genius or talent, someone who's like really excelling, or they've created something amazing, and feel like it's this innate thing that they've had, and it came super easy to them. But like when academics or researchers go and drill down into it, like people just have been working on their craft and like working on their thing slowly and adding to it over time. And the end result that we see is this beautiful talent, like genius or beautiful creation, well, without really understanding all the little steps that the person took along the way to get there. So I think part of it is just like deconstructing that myth and just kind of saying, it's like, you just kind of start and you just take your first step, and you just keep learning how to take the next step in the direction that you want to go.
I've made that observation too. I didn't study psychology, so I don't know it from like a scientific end, but I think I've just come to the personal conclusion that people in general just have a bad sense of time. Like how things can progress over time, and or even the mindset that things can get better over time. Because like with Amazon, it started out of like Jeff Bezos' one office filled with books. Now he has all these buildings, like beautiful glass buildings, and like this website that gets visited by millions of people all the time, on a daily basis. You know. That's really encouraging. That's really
cool. I mean, I think even just like this story of Jama, and like one of the things I really really look up to with Kathy is like a lot of people here initially had no idea what they were doing, right? Like it just kind of started off as like a prayer thing. And then they're here now, like how many years later, and it's just been slowly building over time. More people have caught the vision, have been part of it, joined, and like put their talent and time, money into this. And and I think they still got a long way to go, but like they're like continuing to build on it, right? And I think that's the exciting part. And it's also the very humbling and like also it's just kind of like relieving part of just knowing that we're all just figuring things out as we go, and hopefully things build on each other.
So I want to hit on one more thing before we wrap up. So we talked about, I don't think you actually talked about how you're like proposing to like find like VCs to like invest in you, or like even if it's not VCs, like what's your main strategy to like fundraise right now? Go into as much as detail as you feel comfortable / possible, contingent on NDAs or whatever. So I mean, I'm willing to be pretty open. So I am not, so despite having like respecting what VCs do, and I think there's a lot of value and they meet a need for a lot of entrepreneurs, I as an individual want to avoid VC money as much as possible. I see.
Simply because, so like if you kind of like look at the math and the economics of like what VCs are looking for, just because such a large percentage of money that they put in fails and never have good returns, and they need to somehow beat the market for their investors. They're looking at companies that can potentially have around $1 billion in like annual recurring revenue. And so they
VCs are.
It has to at least have that potential. Like even though like right now you can't like, It's nowhere near that. Like they need to be able to look at the market, size up the market, see where all the spending is, and are you addressing a problem that's $1 billion problem? And so if it's not, they're just like not looking to go there. And because VC funds have a lifetime of like 10 years, and you're probably hitting them in a year, like most funds have a lifetime of 10 years, and you're probably entering it at somewhere in the middle. You're looking at a pretty short time frame, and once you take someone else's money, you're responsible to them. And like I think you have like there's going to be pressure for you to move faster or like go in the area where there's the most potential for growth as fast and quickly as possible. And that's not necessarily the way I want to do things. I want to be more deliberate. I don't really care if it's a little slow initially. I just kind of want to go in the direction that I want at the pace that I want with the right people around me, where I don't have to like take a ton of VC money and hire a ton of people, not really know them and all of those things. And so, so that's all to say, like I would only really go to VC when I felt like if I don't move quickly and I don't have a lot of money to go quickly, like other competitors are going to come in and I'm not going to have a shot. I think that would be the only scenario when I do that. Otherwise, right now I'm like primarily looking at like just grant money or just like little side income streams or like little gigs that'll keep me afloat while I try to continue to work on this idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're just self-funding right now?
Yeah, that's the idea. So I'm like actually in this week, like this morning before I even came here, I like submitted an application for just like grants for doing a startup or because I think I'm kind of also in like the educational space. So like I'm like interested in that. There's some grant money for like entrepreneurs in the educational space. And so there's definitely some resources out there. I just have to do a little bit of work to apply and kind of like talk about my idea and why I think it's worth them giving a shot at me. Yeah.
Very cool. That's truly amazing. So it's just like whatever you make in your side income. I know you're tutoring Chinese students English.
Yeah.
Okay, so that plus like grant money and like whatever side income that you can pour into this yourself. So it's just literally like a passion project right now. But it's for the hopes that it would start up into something bigger.
Yeah. So I'm giving myself a year to try or I mean, as I said, I might go back to school. If I don't go back to school, I'm going to give myself a year to really try seriously and then reevaluate at the end of the year.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Joseph, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
We're just wrapping up.
Air fist bump.
6 feet distance because of social distancing.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for your time. This was amazing.
Oh,
I think one of the best sessions that we've had so far.
Oh, okay. No, thank you. I mean, I feel like I also heard a lot of your story, and I think that was great. Like, I mean, I always love hearing, like, I feel like, I think there's more in the Asian American community now, but like, I think among Asian Americans, because like there's kind of a part of the culture where we're a little bit risk averse. Yeah. And we feel like we should go down the well-trodden path because we know that there's a very bankable return on doing certain things. Yeah. But it's like exciting to hear, and it's like a source of motivation for me as well to hear like you trying things. And then it's like, man, this guy's learning and like he's growing and like he's building things as well. And so I want to be able to do that.
For sure, man. Yeah. Hopefully we reach more Asian Americans or just people in general that want to do and build things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for your time again.
Yeah. Thank you.